Dr. James Harrison hadn't expected to find anything extraordinary during his routine ice core sampling in the Arctic. The harsh wind whipped across the frozen landscape as his team's drilling equipment hummed steadily, boring deep into the ancient ice. Their research was supposed to be about climate change, about understanding Earth's past. Instead, they were about to uncover something that would change humanity's future forever. The first sign that something was different came when their drilling equipment hit something solid at an unusually shallow depth. The impact sent vibrations through the machine that made Harrison's teeth rattle. "Kill the power," he shouted over the howling wind, his breath visible in the frigid air. As they extracted the drill, Harrison noticed an unusual purple glow emanating from the borehole. He'd spent 15 years studying ice cores, but he'd never seen anything like this. Using thermal imaging equipment, they discovered a large object embedded in the ice, radiating heat from within. It took 3 days of careful excavation before they reached it. What they found defied explanation. A sleek, metallic pod about 20 feet long, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. But what truly shocked them was that the pod was warm to the touch, despite having been buried in the ice for what carbon dating would later reveal to be over 10,000 years. "This changes everything," whispered Dr. Kira Patel, Harrison's research partner, as she ran her gloved hand along the pod's surface. The patterns beneath her fingers pulsed with a faint purple light. Before they could continue their examination, the pod's surface began to ripple like liquid mercury. A seam appeared down its center, releasing a hiss of pressurized air. Harrison and his team stepped back, their hearts pounding as the pod slowly opened to reveal its contents. Inside lay a humanoid figure, tall and elegant, with skin the color of twilight and hair that seemed to contain the very essence of starlight. She was clearly female, dressed in what appeared to be some kind of combat suit, though parts of it were damaged. What caught Harrison's attention most were the intricate markings that covered her exposed skin. They matched the patterns on the pod perfectly. "She's alive," gasped Harrison, watching the slight rise and fall of her chest. "Get the medical kit now." But before anyone could move, her eyes snapped open. They were entirely silver, without pupils or irises, and they fixed immediately on Harrison. The alien woman's hand shot out with impossible speed, grabbing his wrist. Harrison felt a jolt of energy course through his body, and suddenly his mind was filled with images. A vast fleet of ships among the stars, a desperate battle, a last-ditch effort to preserve something precious. "Professor Harrison," the base doctor interrupted through his radio. "We've detected your emergency beacon. What's the situation?" Harrison looked down at the alien woman, who was now unconscious again, but still holding his wrist. He had to make a decision quickly. The military would be here soon. Protocol demanded it for any unusual discoveries in the Arctic. But something in those shared images, something in her desperate escape and long hibernation, told him that bringing in the military might be a terrible mistake. "False alarm," he replied into his radio. "Equipment malfunction in the cold. We're fine here." Kira stared at him in shock. "James, what are you doing? We have to report this." "No," Harrison said firmly, his mind racing with the images he'd seen. "If we report this, she'll become a military asset. You saw those markings, that technology. She's not just some random alien, Kira. She's a warrior, maybe even a leader. And she came here running from something. All the more reason to let the authorities handle this," Kira argued, but Harrison could see uncertainty in her eyes. "The authorities will treat her like a threat or a weapon," Harrison countered. "We need to understand why she's here first. Help me get her to the research station's medical bay. We can keep her hidden there until she recovers." As they carefully moved the alien woman from the pod, Harrison noticed something else. A small crystalline device clutched in her other hand, pulsing with the same purple energy. He carefully pried it loose and slipped it into his pocket. Whatever it was, it seemed important enough for her to hold on to even in hibernation. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Harrison and Kira worked in shifts, monitoring their mysterious patient while maintaining the appearance of normal research operations. They discovered that her biology, while alien, shared some basic similarities with human physiology. Her wounds, apparently sustained before entering the pod, were slowly healing. Harrison spent hours studying the crystalline device, which projected holographic symbols he couldn't understand. He also couldn't shake the lingering effects of that brief mental connection. Sometimes, when he dozed off from exhaustion, he would dream of stars he'd never seen and battles among them. On the third day, everything changed. Harrison was alone in the medical bay when the alien woman suddenly sat up, her silver eyes now sharp and alert. She spoke, her voice carrying an otherworldly harmonic quality. "You protected me." "Yes," Harrison replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I saw something when you grabbed my wrist. You're running from someone, aren't you?" She stood, moving with a fluid grace that made human movement seem clumsy by comparison. "My name is Nyara," she said, "and I am running from everyone." She fixed those silver eyes on him. "You should have left me in the ice, Professor Harrison. By waking me, you've put your entire world in danger." Before Harrison could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the research station. Through the window, he could see multiple military helicopters approaching through the Arctic storm. Someone had talked. Nyara's expression hardened. "They're already here," she said, her voice carrying a weight of ancient knowledge. "And they're not the ones we should fear. What follows them will bring far worse." Harrison looked between the approaching helicopters and this mysterious warrior from the stars. In that moment, he knew his life would never be the same. Whatever was coming, whatever she was running from, he was now part of it. The only question was, what would it cost him? And Earth, in the end? Hidden powers. The military helicopters were minutes away when Nyara pressed her palm against the medical bay's window. Purple energy rippled across the glass, and suddenly the entire room seemed to shimmer like a mirage in desert heat. "A cloaking field," she explained, her silver eyes scanning the approaching aircraft. "They won't see us, but it won't last long. We need to move." Harrison's mind raced. "There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the vehicle bay. We can take one of the snow crawlers." He grabbed his research tablet and the crystal device. "But I need to know what we're dealing with. Who's following you?" Nyara moved toward the door with predatory grace. "The Vardis Imperium," she said, her voice tight with tension. "They're a race of conquerors who believe they're destined to rule all sentient species. My people, the Lysians, were among the few who could stand against them." She paused, checking the corridor. "We were winning the war until they unveiled their new weapon, a device that could turn our own neural network against us." They moved swiftly through the empty corridors, the station's alarms still blaring. Harrison could hear boots on metal as military personnel entered the main building. "Neural network?" he asked, trying to keep up with Nyara's fluid movements. "My people are connected telepathically," she explained as they descended into the maintenance tunnel. "It's how we coordinate our fleets, how we share knowledge. The Vardis found a way to corrupt that connection, to turn our greatest strength into a weapon of mass destruction." Her voice carried centuries of pain. "I was leading the defense of our homeworld when they deployed it. Millions of minds, screaming in agony, then silence." Harrison felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Arctic cold. "But you survived." "I was far enough from the epicenter to maintain my sanity, but close enough to feel every death." They reached the vehicle bay, where massive snow crawlers waited in the darkness. "I stole their prototype weapon and fled. The pod you found was my escape vessel, damaged in the pursuit. I chose your world because it was primitive enough to hide among, yet advanced enough that the weapon's signature might be masked by your technology." As Harrison started up one of the snow crawlers, he saw military vehicles approaching the station through the swirling snow. "The crystal device. That's the weapon." Nyara nodded grimly. "A key to both destruction and salvation. If I can study it, understand it, I might find a way to protect my surviving people. But if the Vardis retrieve it, they'll use it to enslave every telepathic species in the galaxy. The snow crawler roared to life, its massive treads gripping the ice as they crashed through the vehicle bay doors. Harrison could see soldiers turning toward the sound, but Nyara's cloaking field still held, making them appear as nothing more than a trick of the light. "Why did you show me those visions?" Harrison asked as they plowed through the snow, heading away from the station. "Why trust me?" Nyara was quiet for a moment, her silver eyes reflecting the Arctic twilight. "Because in that brief contact, I saw something in your mind that surprised me. Your species is young, often violent, but some of you specifically, have a capacity for empathy that rivals my people's natural connection. You didn't just see my memories, you felt them." A sudden explosion behind them lit up the sky. The research station's fuel tanks had been hit, whether by accident or design. Harrison thought of Kira and the others, hoping they were safe, knowing he couldn't go back. "They'll track us," he said, checking their fuel levels. "And we can't run forever in this terrain." "We don't need to run forever," Nyara replied, removing a small device from her suit. "Just long enough for me to call in some old favors. There are others like me. Survivors, rebels, those who oppose the Vardis. I've been silent for millennia. But now," she looked at the crystal device, "now we might have a chance to end this war." The device in her hands hummed to life, projecting complex symbols into the air. Harrison recognized them from the crystal's holographic display. "You're sending a message. A warning and a call to arms," she said, her fingers dancing through the projection. "But the Vardis will detect it too. They've never stopped searching for me. And now," she stiffened suddenly, her silver eyes widening, "they're already here." Harrison followed her gaze upward. Through breaks in the storm clouds, he could see something massive moving against the stars, a shape that seemed to devour the light around it. "A Vardis dreadnought," Nyara whispered. "They must have been watching your world, waiting for any sign of my awakening." She turned to Harrison, her expression intense. "I'm sorry, but your planet is now part of a war it never asked for." "Then we better make sure we win it," Harrison replied, surprising himself with his determination. He thought of the visions she'd shared, of millions of minds crying out in agony. He couldn't let that happen to Earth. The snow crawler's radio crackled to life. "Dr. Harrison," a stern voice said, "this is General Reeves of the Global Defense Initiative. We've tracked your vehicle and have units converging on your position. Whatever you found in that ice, it's now a matter of planetary security. Surrender immediately." Before Harrison could respond, Nyara placed her hand on the radio. Purple energy surged through it, and suddenly the general's voice was replaced by a cascade of impossible sounds, whale song mixed with electronic pulses, and something that made Harrison's teeth ache. "What did you do?" "Activated a few dormant frequencies in your planet's natural electromagnetic field," she said. "It will confuse their tracking systems, but not for long." She checked her device again, its symbols pulsing urgently. "3 of my allies are close enough to reach us within 6 hours. We need to find a place to hide until then." Harrison studied their navigation system. "There's an abandoned mining complex about 40 kilometers north, if we can reach it." A beam of sickly green light split the sky, striking the ice 2 kilometers ahead of them. Where it hit, the frozen ground began to bubble and steam, releasing clouds of noxious gas. "Vardis bioweapons," Nyara said through clenched teeth. "They're trying to flush us out without destroying the crystal. Take us east, toward those ridges. I can use the mineral deposits to mask our energy signature." As Harrison turned the massive vehicle, more beams lanced down from above, creating a deadly pattern of toxic craters. He could see military helicopters scattered by the alien attack, their pilots presumably as shocked as he was by the sudden appearance of advanced warfare. "The crystal," he said, remembering something. "You said it was a key to destruction and salvation. What did you mean?" Nyara's hands moved swiftly over her device, presumably trying to contact her allies again. "The Vardis weapon doesn't just attack telepathic connections. It rewrites them. In the process of studying it, I discovered that its core technology could theoretically be reversed. Instead of corrupting neural networks, it could strengthen them, even create new ones. Create new ones? Harrison asked, swerving to avoid another green beam. You mean? Yes, she said, her silver eyes meeting his. With enough time and resources, I could use it to give humanity the same gift my people had. A global neural network, connecting every human mind in a way your internet can only dream of. But it would have to be their choice. After what happened to my people, I won't force such a connection on anyone. Harrison absorbed this as they crashed through a field of ice formations. Behind them, he could hear military vehicles in pursuit, and above, the massive Vardish ship continued its ominous advance. First we have to survive, he said, checking their fuel gauge. They had maybe 2 hours of power left. Tell me about these allies of yours. Will they be enough to fight that? He gestured upward at the dreadnought. Nyara's expression was grim but determined. Alone, no. But they're not coming to fight. She held up her device, showing a complex pattern of approaching signals. They're coming to help us steal that dreadnought. And then, Professor Harrison, we're going to show both humanity and the Vardis exactly what happens when you underestimate supposedly primitive species. The snow crawler roared through the Arctic twilight, carrying its unlikely passengers toward a future neither of them could fully imagine. Above them, the stars seemed to tremble as ancient powers prepared for war, and somewhere in the darkness, allies and enemies raced toward a confrontation that would change the course of 2 civilizations forever. The rising storm. The abandoned mining complex loomed before them, its metal structures jutting from the ice like the bones of some ancient creature. Harrison guided the snow crawler into what remained of the vehicle bay, its power cells finally failing as they came to a stop. In the distance, green flashes still lit up the horizon as the Vardis ship continued its methodical search pattern. Your allies better hurry, Harrison said, checking the tablet he'd brought from the research station. Global military forces are mobilizing. They're treating this as a full-scale invasion, which is exactly what it will become if we don't act quickly. Nyara moved through the darkness with perfect confidence, her twilight skin seeming to absorb what little light remained. She placed her communication device on a rusty workbench, its holographic display casting purple shadows on the walls. The Vardis don't just conquer worlds, they transform them. Those green beams aren't just weapons, they're preparing the environment for their kind of life. Harrison thought of the bubbling craters they'd seen. Terraforming. Vardis forming, she corrected grimly. Their biology requires specific atmospheric conditions. They'll remake your entire planet, killing most native life in the process. She adjusted something in the holographic display. My allies are approaching your solar system, but the Vardis fleet is closer. 3 more dreadnoughts have entered your gravity well. A distant explosion rocked the building. Through gaps in the walls, Harrison could see military jets engaging with something in the clouds, smaller ships that had deployed from the dreadnought. The aerial battle lit up the Arctic night with streaks of traditional gunfire and alien energy weapons. Your people, Harrison said, watching the battle. You said some survived. Why haven't they helped? Nyara's silver eyes reflected the distant explosions. The survivors scattered, hiding on primitive worlds like yours, trying to rebuild our neural network in secret. But we're too few, too far apart. Without the network, we're just fragments of what we once were. She touched the crystal device. That's why this is so important. It's not just a weapon. It's a key to understanding how neural networks form and evolve. With it, we could potentially rebuild our connection, stronger than before. The ground shook again, closer this time. Harrison peered through a gap in the wall. Military ground forces are approaching. Tanks, infantry, they're surrounding the complex. They think they're protecting their world, Nyara said softly. They don't realize they're walking into a war zone they can't possibly understand. She straightened suddenly, her attention fixed on her communication device. They're here. At first, Harrison saw nothing in the storm-dark sky. Then he noticed 3 points of light, different from the ongoing battle. They moved with impossible speed, descending toward the mining complex in perfect formation. As they got closer, he could make out their true form. Ships unlike anything he'd seen before, organic curves blending with crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. Lysian scout ships, Nyara explained, a note of pride in her voice. What's left of our once great fleet. She pressed her palm to the communication device, and suddenly the air was filled with that same impossible mixture of sounds Harrison had heard before: whale song, electronic pulses, and something that seemed to bypass his ears entirely. The 3 ships landed with incredible precision, forming a triangle around the mining complex. From each one emerged a figure similar to Nyara, tall, elegant, with skin in various shades of twilight. They moved through the military cordon as if it didn't exist, their own cloaking fields making them invisible to human eyes. "Commander," the first to reach them said, kneeling before Nyara. Like her, his skin was marked with intricate patterns, though his were deep indigo rather than purple. "We thought you lost to the void." "Rise, Talon," Nyara said, her formal tone carrying centuries of authority. "We have no time for ceremony. The Vardis are here." The other 2 Lysians arrived, a female with azure markings named Vena, and a male with silver patterns called Keres. All 3 carried weapons that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as their ships. "4 of us against 4 dreadnoughts," Keres said, his voice carrying harmonics that made Harrison's skin tingle. "Even with your plan to seize one of their ships, the odds are..." "The odds are irrelevant," Nyara cut him off. "And we're not alone." She gestured to Harrison. "Humanity may be young, but they're far from helpless. Their technological progress is remarkable for their age, and more importantly, they have something the Vardis lack: adaptability." "You can't be serious," Vena said, her silver eyes widening. "They're barely space-capable. The Vardis will slaughter them." Another explosion rocked the complex. Through the gaps, Harrison could see human military forces engaging with what appeared to be Vardis ground troops. Tall, armored figures that moved with mechanical precision, their weapons spewing that same sickly green energy. "They're fighting back pretty well so far," Harrison pointed out, watching a tank battalion successfully take down several Vardis soldiers. "Because the Vardis underestimate them," Nyara said. "They see all younger species as primitive, predictable. They don't understand how quick humans are to adapt, to find creative solutions." She turned to her fellow Lysians. "That's why we're going to help them adapt even faster." She held up the crystal device. "This weapon doesn't just affect existing neural networks. It can create new ones. With modification, we could give humanity a fighting chance. Not by controlling them, but by offering them the choice to evolve." The other Lysians stared at her in shock. Keres spoke first. "You're talking about uplifting an entire species in the middle of a war. The consequences of doing nothing would be worse," Nyara interrupted. "The Vardis aren't just here for me or the weapon. They're here because Earth's sun has specific properties they need for their long-term plans. They'll remake this entire system, killing billions in the process." Harrison's tablet suddenly lit up with alerts. More Vardis ships entering the atmosphere. They're landing troops globally now. Major cities, military installations, power plants. "A standard conquest pattern," Talon observed. "They'll establish control of key infrastructure, then begin atmospheric conversion." He looked at Nyara. "How long to modify the crystal device?" "Hours, maybe less with your help. But we need a secure location and power. Lots of it." Harrison studied his tablet's map. "There's a hydroelectric dam 50 kilometers south. Heavy military presence, but it's our best bet for power generation. The Vardis will target it soon," Vena warned. "They always prioritize power infrastructure." "Then we better move fast." Nyara turned to Harrison. "Your people need to know what they're really fighting. Can you contact someone in authority?" Someone who will listen. Harrison thought for a moment. Dr. Patel. Kira. She was at the research station when I found you. She has connections with the Global Defense Initiative. If she survived the attack. She did, Nayara said with certainty. I can sense her mind nearby. The military brought her to their command center. She closed her eyes briefly. She's trying to convince them that communication is possible, that not all aliens are hostile. Can you reach her telepathically? Not clearly. Human minds aren't structured for our kind of communication. But Nayara held out her hand to Harrison. With your help, using your existing connection to her, I might be able to establish a link. Harrison took her hand without hesitation. Immediately, his mind was flooded with sensations, stars wheeling overhead, the pulse of ancient engines, the symphony of countless minds linked in harmony. Through it all, he could feel Nayara guiding him, teaching him to focus these new senses. And there, like a distant radio signal growing stronger, he felt Kira's mind. The dam, he projected the thought, hoping she would understand. Bring forces to the dam. There's a chance, a real chance, but we need your help. Through the connection, he felt her startled recognition, then her fierce determination. She understood. Forces are already moving to protect the dam. She sent back, the thought faint but clear. I'll meet you there. Don't get shot. The connection faded as Nayara released his hand. Harrison stumbled slightly, his mind reeling from the experience. That was a glimpse of what humanity could become, she said softly. If they choose it. Another explosion, much closer, brought them back to the immediate crisis. The Vardis ground forces had reached the complex. We need to move, Talon said, readying his weapon. Our ships can transport us to the dam, but... No, Nayara interrupted. We go by ground. The Vardis will be watching for our ships now. She turned to Harrison. How good are you at dragging tanks? Harrison blinked. I've never. You're about to learn. She gestured to where several abandoned military vehicles sat outside the complex, their crews having retreated from the Vardis advance. Karis, Vena, secure us a path. Talon, help me link with the tank systems. Time to show the Vardis that primitive technology can still bite. As they moved out into the Arctic night, Harrison caught glimpses of the battle raging above. More Vardis ships had arrived, engaging with Earth's military forces in a desperate aerial dance. The northern lights themselves seemed to react to the conflict, rippling with unusual colors as energy weapons tore through the magnetosphere. The war for Earth had begun. But as Harrison watched Nayara coordinate with her fellow Lysians, seeing the perfect synchronization of their movements, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. If they could reach the dam, if they could unlock humanity's hidden potential. The tank roared to life under his hands, its systems enhanced by Lysian technology. Ahead lay 50 kilometers of contested territory, 4 Vardis dreadnoughts, and an army of alien conquerors. Behind them, the future of 2 civilizations hung in the balance. Ready? Nayara asked, her silver eyes gleaming with warrior's light. Harrison nodded, thinking of Kira and the forces gathering at the dam, of humanity fighting back across the globe, of the choice they would soon be offered. Ready. Bridging worlds. The dam rose before them like a wall between worlds, its massive concrete face ghostly white in the Arctic twilight. Harrison guided the enhanced tank through the military checkpoint, where Kira stood waiting with a contingent of GDI forces. Her eyes widened at the sight of the modified vehicle, its surface now traced with glowing purple lines of Lysian energy. You look like you've had an interesting day, she said as Harrison emerged from the tank. Behind him, Nayara and her fellow Lysians appeared, their cloaking fields dropping to reveal their true forms. Dr. Patel, Nayara said, inclining her head. Your mind burns bright with questions. Ask them quickly. We don't have much time. Above them, the sky had taken on a sickly green tinge, where the Vardis weapons had begun their atmospheric conversion. The 4 dreadnoughts now hung in clear view, their massive forms blotting out the stars. The Joint Chiefs are listening, Kira said, holding up a secure tablet. They've seen the global reports. The Vardis are attacking every major power source on Earth, nuclear plants, solar farms, geothermal stations, but they seem especially interested in this dam. Why? Because they can sense what we're about to attempt, Nayara explained, removing the crystal device from her suit. This facility doesn't just generate power, it's built on a junction of Earth's natural electromagnetic fields. Combined with the hydroelectric output, it's the perfect amplifier for the crystal's capabilities. A distant explosion lit up the horizon. On Kira's tablet, reports streamed in of Vardis ground forces converging on their position. The alien armies moved with mechanical precision, their green energy weapons cutting through conventional military defenses. You said this crystal could give humans telepathic abilities, Harrison said, watching Nayara and her companions begin setting up their equipment. But there's more to it than that, isn't there? Nayara's silver eyes met his. Much more. The Vardis weapon doesn't just attack neural networks, it fundamentally alters the way consciousness interacts with the quantum fabric of space-time. In the right conditions, with enough power, it could link every human mind on Earth. Karas continued, his hands moving swiftly over crystalline controls. Not just to each other, but to the planetary electromagnetic field itself. Your species would become a unified consciousness while maintaining individual identity, like our people once were. And that's why the Vardis are really here, Venna added, her azure markings pulsing with energy as she worked. They don't just fear what humanity might become, they fear what you already are. Your adaptability, your creativity, your capacity for rapid technological advancement. Given the gift of unified consciousness, we could surpass them, Kira finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. You already are, Talon said, monitoring the battle through his own devices. Look at how quickly your military has adapted to fighting them. Conventional weapons modified on the fly, tactics evolved in hours instead of years. The Vardis have never encountered a species that learned so fast. Another explosion, much closer. The ground forces had reached the outer defense perimeter. Harrison could see human tanks and infantry engaging with the mechanical precision of the Vardis soldiers. Above, Earth's air forces clashed with alien fighters in a desperate battle to protect the dam. We need to start now, Nayara said urgently. She turned to Kira's tablet, addressing the military leaders directly. What we're attempting will affect every human on Earth. We can't force this evolution. The choice must be yours. But you need to decide quickly. The tablet crackled with overlapping voices as global leaders debated humanity's future in rapid-fire exchanges. Finally, a single voice cut through. You have our authorization. Whatever you're going to do it fast. Our defenses are failing worldwide. Nayara nodded to her companions. They formed a circle around the crystal device, which now hovered between them, pulsing with increasingly bright energy. Harrison felt a familiar tingling in his mind as they began to link their consciousness. Dr. Harrison, Nayara called. We need you and Dr. Puddle. Your minds are already partially attuned to our frequency. You'll be the bridges between our species. Harrison and Kira stepped forward, joining hands with the Lysians. Immediately, their minds were flooded with the full power of the alien neural network. Harrison gasped as he felt the vast consciousness of the four Lysians unfold around him. Millennia of memories, scientific knowledge beyond human comprehension, the deep grief of their lost civilization. Focus, Nayara's voice echoed in his mind. Feel the electromagnetic field of your planet. It's already a kind of neural network. Humans just never learned to access it. Harrison felt it then. The invisible web of energy that encompassed Earth, pulsing with both natural and artificial power. Through his connection with Kira, he could sense her doing the same, their human minds learning to perceive new dimensions of reality. The crystal device rose higher, its light becoming almost blindingly bright. Above them, the Vardis dreadnoughts opened fire, their green energy beams converging on the dam. But something unexpected happened. The beams seemed to curve away, deflected by the growing sphere of purple energy emanating from the crystal. "They're too late," Karis said, his voice tight with concentration. "The reaction has begun." Harrison felt it like a wave building in his mind. The crystal's power amplified by the dam's generators and Earth's natural fields, spreading outward in all directions. Through his enhanced perception, he could see it washing over the planet, touching every human mind with the offer of transformation. But the Vardis weren't done. The ground forces had reached the dam itself, their weapons blazing. Military defenders fought desperately to hold them back, but the alien soldiers seemed endless in number. "Something's wrong," Venna called out suddenly. "The crystal, it's becoming unstable." Harrison could feel it through their connection. The device was drawing more power than expected, the energies within it threatening to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. "The Vardis," Nyara growled. "They're trying to overload it remotely. If it explodes with this much power," she didn't need to finish the thought. They all knew it would destroy not just the dam, but possibly the entire region. "Let me try something," Harrison said suddenly. Through his connection to Earth's electromagnetic field, he had sensed something, a pattern in the Vardis transmission that seemed familiar. Their signal. It's like a virus attacking a computer network. But if we treat Earth's field like a firewall. He focused his mind, drawing on everything he'd learned about data protection in his years of research. Kira caught on immediately, adding her own expertise. Together, they began reshaping the electromagnetic field around the crystal, creating layers of protection against the Vardis attack. "It's working," Talon reported, his silver markings pulsing rapidly. "The crystal's stabilizing, and something else is happening." Through their linked consciousness, they all felt it. Human minds across the planet beginning to wake up to their new potential. Scientists suddenly understanding advanced physics as if they'd known it all along. Soldiers instinctively coordinating their attacks with perfect precision. Civilians finding themselves connected to a vast network of shared knowledge and experience. The Vardis ground forces faltered as their opponents suddenly began fighting with unprecedented coordination. Above, Earth's air forces moved like a single organism, their tactics evolving moment by moment as they drove back the alien fighters. "They're adapting too quickly," Karis said with something like awe. "The neural network. Humans aren't just accepting it, they're improving it." Harrison felt it himself, his mind expanding beyond anything he'd imagined, connected not just to the other humans and Lysians, but to the living electromagnetic field of Earth itself. Through this connection, he could sense the Vardis ships, could understand their technology in ways that would have been impossible hours ago. "Nara," he called out, both aloud and mentally. "The dreadnoughts. I can see how they work. Their quantum drive systems, their weapons, their life support. It's all connected to the same kind of network the crystal uses. If we can reverse the signal, we can turn their own ships against them." She finished, her silver eyes blazing with possibility. "Humanity's gift for adaptation combined with our technology. It's creating solutions we never imagined." The crystal pulsed once more, its energy now a perfect harmony of human innovation and Lysian wisdom. Above them, the Vardis dreadnoughts began to shudder as their own systems turned against them. But victory was not yet certain. As the massive ships began to fall from the sky, their commanders launched a final desperate attack. Green energy beams lanced down from all four dreadnoughts, converging not on the dam, but on the crystal itself. "Hold on," Nyara shouted as reality itself seemed to bend around them. "The transformation is almost complete." Harrison gripped tighter to the hands of those around him, feeling the power surge through their circle as human and Lysian minds worked together to protect the crystal. Through their shared consciousness, he could feel the future taking shape, a future where humanity would walk among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as something entirely new. The final battle for Earth's destiny had begun. A new dawn. The world held its breath as four Vardis dreadnoughts hung wounded in Earth's atmosphere, their green energy beams still converging on the crystal that now linked humanity's consciousness. At the dam, Harrison, Kira, and their Lysian allies stood locked in their circle, channeling power through the ancient device as reality itself seemed to waver around them. The crystals reaching critical mass. Kara's warned, his indigo markings pulsing with strain. If those beams hit it directly. They won't, Harrison said with newfound certainty. Through humanity's emerging neural network, he could feel millions of minds working in concert, applying their collective intelligence to the problem. Scientists, engineers, and theorists across the planet were suddenly sharing insights at the speed of thought, their combined knowledge expanding exponentially. "There!" Kira exclaimed, her consciousness merging seamlessly with the others. "The Vardis weapons. They're not just energy beams. They're carrying quantum-encrypted commands meant to overload the crystal. But encryption can be broken," Naira added, her silver eyes gleaming as she followed the human's logic, especially when you have millions of minds working on it simultaneously. Through their shared consciousness, Harrison felt the solution taking shape. Earth's military forces worldwide began redirecting their most powerful transmission arrays, guided by the newly enhanced minds of their operators. Civilian communications networks joined in, their signals synchronized by the planetary neural network. "We're not trying to block their attack," Harrison explained as understanding flowed through the link. "We're going to reflect it." The crystal pulsed with blinding purple light as they implemented their plan. Earth's electromagnetic field, now intimately connected to humanity's collective consciousness, began to change frequency. The Vardis beams struck this modified field and scattered, their encrypted commands unraveling into pure energy. But the Vardis commanders were not so easily defeated. The dreadnoughts began a new maneuver, their massive forms descending toward the dam despite their failing systems. If their weapons couldn't destroy the crystal, they would crash their ships into it. "They're going to sacrifice themselves to stop the transformation," Talon observed grimly. "Typical Vardis tactics. If they can't control something, they destroy it." "Not this time," Naira said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Humanity, show them what you've learned." Through the neural network, Harrison felt Earth's response. Military and civilian aircraft worldwide altered course, converging on the falling dreadnoughts. But they weren't attacking. They were positioning themselves in precise formations, their engines resonating at carefully calculated frequencies. The Vardis ships use quantum fields for propulsion, Kira explained through the link. With the right interference pattern, Harrison watched in awe as human pilots, their minds now operating with enhanced perception and coordination, created a complex web of sonic and electromagnetic interference. The dreadnought's quantum fields began to fluctuate, their controlled descent turning into an upward spiral. "They're being pushed back into orbit," Venna reported, her azure markings flickering with excitement. "The humans have weaponized basic physics in ways the Vardis never imagined." But victory had its price. The crystal was now pulsing erratically, its structure beginning to crack under the strain of maintaining the planetary transformation. Purple energy arced between the device and the circle of beings around it, causing ripples in the fabric of space-time itself. "The power requirements are too high," Kara's warned. "We can't maintain this level of output." "We don't need to," Naira responded calmly. "Look." Through their shared consciousness, they could all see it. The transformation was already self-sustaining. Humanity's neural network had taken root in Earth's natural fields, evolving beyond its Lysian origins into something uniquely human. The crystal had served its purpose as a catalyst, but now, "It's time to end this," Harrison said, understanding what needed to be done. "Kira, help me redirect the power flow." Working together, their enhanced minds moving at incredible speed, they began to channel the crystal's remaining energy upward. The device rose higher above their circle, its light becoming almost unbearable to look at. "The Vardis ships," Talon called out suddenly. "They're charging weapons again." "Perfect," Naira said with a fierce smile. "Everyone, break the circle on my mark." Harrison, Kira, be ready to sever the connection completely. The 4 dreadnoughts fired simultaneously, their green beams converging on the hovering crystal. But this time, instead of trying to block or reflect the attack, they let it come. Now, Nyara commanded. The circle broke apart as the crystal absorbed the full force of the Vardis weapons. For a moment, it seemed to contain the impossible energies within itself. Then, with a flash that lit up the Arctic sky like a new sun, it released everything upward in a single concentrated burst. The purple beam struck the lead dreadnought directly in its quantum core. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The ship's own technology turned against it, creating a cascade of failures that spread to the other vessels through their shared network. One by one, the massive ships began to break apart, their fragments burning up harmlessly in the atmosphere. As the light faded, Harrison felt the neural connection changing. The immediate unity of minds began to fade, but something else remained. A subtle link, a potential that could be accessed when needed but wouldn't overwhelm individual consciousness. The perfect balance, Nyara said softly, watching the transformation complete itself. Humanity has taken our gift and made it their own. Individual identity preserved, but with the ability to connect and share knowledge at will. And the Vardis? Kira asked, her mind still adjusting to its new capabilities. Retreating, Kara's reported, monitoring the situation through his devices. Their remaining ships are leaving the solar system. They've never failed to conquer a target world before. They don't know how to process this defeat. They'll be back, Talon warned. The Vardis don't give up easily. Let them come, Harrison said, feeling the confidence of humanity's shared knowledge flowing through him. We'll be ready. And next time, we won't be fighting just to defend Earth. Nyara looked at him curiously. What do you mean? Your people, Harrison explained. The scattered survivors of the Lysian civilization. Now that humanity has adapted your neural technology and improved upon it, we can help you find them. Rebuild your network, but better than before. A partnership, Kira added, understanding his vision. Humanity's gift for innovation combined with Lysian wisdom and experience. Together, we could create something entirely new. Nyara's silver eyes shimmered with emotion. After all these centuries hiding among primitive worlds, I never imagined. She straightened, her warrior's bearing returning. The Vardis won't expect it. 2 civilizations working together, sharing knowledge and resources. 3 civilizations, Vena corrected. Look. Through their residual connection to Earth's electromagnetic field, they could all sense it. Other alien minds watching from hidden places throughout the solar system. Species that had been observing humanity's development, waiting to see if they would survive this trial. We're not alone, Harrison realized. We never were. And now you're ready to join the larger community, Nyara said. But on your own terms, not as conquests or subjects, but as equals. The sun began to rise over the dam, its light catching the falling debris of the Vardis ships as they burned away in the atmosphere. Below, Earth's military forces were already adapting to their new capabilities, coordinating global recovery efforts with unprecedented efficiency. What happens now? Kira asked, watching the dawn of this new era. Now, Nyara replied, we begin the real work. There are other worlds to free, other civilizations to help evolve. The Vardis Empire is vast, but they've never faced an alliance like this. Human adaptability, Lysian technology, and the combined knowledge of countless hidden species. A revolution, Harrison said, understanding the scale of what they'd begun. No, Nyara corrected him gently. A renaissance. A new age of cooperation and advancement, spreading across the galaxy one world at a time. As the Arctic sun climbed higher, Harrison felt the truth of it in his enhanced mind. This was not an ending, but a beginning. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors or victims, but as innovators and allies. The Vardis had sought to prevent Earth's evolution, but in doing so, they had only ensured it. The crystal's remains sparkled in the morning light, its purpose fulfilled. But its legacy would live on in the subtle network that now connected humanity, in the alliance forming between Earth and the stars, and in the promise of a future where intelligence and creativity would triumph over conquest and control. Above them, the sky had cleared of Varda's ships, revealing the stars that would soon become humanity's new frontier. And somewhere out there, scattered survivors of a shattered civilization felt the first stirrings of their rebuilt network, calling them home to join in the dawn of a new age. The war was over. The Renaissance had begun.